I was feeling that people were plastic robots moving around, and when I was talking, I wasn't feeling that I am talking. It was crazy. So it was a really huge fear of, I'm not here, I'm going to die, I am going to vanish.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, author of the Depersonalization Manual, and today I'm speaking with Alexandros Loukas. Alex is 26 years old, originally from Greece and now living in Dublin, Ireland. In September of 2021, Alex moved to Ireland to study music, but before the move, he had started to feel depersonalization due in part to a bad experience on magic mushrooms. Amazingly, Alex still continued with the move and started his new life in Ireland. Unfortunately, that's when the symptoms of DPDR really began to intensify. His experience with the condition got much worse, including, as he told me in an email, depersonalization so intense that I felt like a long-distance memory of myself. Fortunately, Alex has since made a complete recovery, and he is, as he says, living my dream, studying and recording music. And Alex is with us today to talk about his experience with and recovery from DPDR. Alex, you're very welcome to the channel. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate that you took the time to make this video with me, and especially for YouTube channel that you have. And I think it's a really great contribution. And I have seen in many comments under your YouTube videos that there are people that find a place that can be understood by somebody. And that's a really huge thing, especially when you're going through the depersonalization and the derealization symptoms.
Alex, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Basically, I'm coming from Greece. I grew up in a suburb of Athens, which is 1 hour from Athens. The hometown is called Marathon, and it's close to the sea. I grew up having the sea by myself. I have one twin brother and one older brother. Then I studied in Athens. I did a degree in economics, and in the meanwhile, I always thinking to go abroad and study music, which happened 1 year and a half ago. I found a music school in Ireland, which I'm still a student of.
Alex, can you tell us a bit about your experience with DPDR and how did it start for you?
Basically, Sean, all this happened about 2 years ago. It was the first year of the COVID lockdown, which was really strict in Greece, with a lot of measures, a lot of isolation, and it was really stressful. I could not go out after 7 p.m. But anyway, And I remember one day, me and my friends, we were basically for months we didn't have nothing to do, and a friend of mine has already started with psychedelic drugs, and especially with mushrooms, and altogether had this funny idea of going to Acropolis. Is the ancient temple in Greece, and there's a really lovely hill next to Acropolis, and it was a bit crazy, and that night basically we make like a cup of psilocybin of mushrooms, and it wasn't a large quantity. It was basically 1 gram of psilocybin. I'm not sure if I pronounced it correct. Anyway.
Yeah, you made tea from the mushrooms, and it was about a gram of psilocybin. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't that huge amount. It wasn't like 3 grams per person or something. It was like night, like 9 or 10 p.m. It was May. It was 2 years. May of 21. Yeah, and the view was nice. Everything was nice. Some clouds, over the sky and everything. And we actually started drinking the tea. And there were 3 people in total. Those 2 friends were friends of mine from high school and from my early university years, like my very first university year. To be very honest, at that point, For I wasn't really connected with them for the last few years while I was in Athens. I had some. I was changing as a person, and therefore my relationships with my friends were changing, and I wasn't really connected in a deeper level with them. And I mention that because it's important when you are doing when you are using any kind of psychoactive drugs to have people with you and you really trust and you really feel bonded. And I didn't back then, although they were high school friends, and but still we had distances. And the reason I did this usage of drugs, I think, was mostly, I think, to be honest, only was escapism, basically to escape like feelings of feeling back in life, feeling worthless because I was doing nothing. So basically started. We drank the tea, not a huge quantity, and a bit gradually. In the beginning, we were feeling fine, nice. We were listening to a Pink Floyd song while watching the clouds. But anyway,
Nice.
that was nice. And after an hour, about as I remember, I didn't really feel nothing. Like I was feeling like, okay, I'm sober. It wasn't a unfiltered anyway. And basically we started using the weed, and I was the person that used I almost smoked 1 gram of weed by myself.
Alex, you were saying you had smoked about a lot of the weed by yourself?
Basically by myself and my friends, but mostly I did by myself. And I remember really it has stuck in my mind the moment I feel like my soul gets out of myself, and as I feel that I'm somewhere here and not within my body and grounded. And I started panicking. At first I'm sending a message to a friend, please call me. And after a few minutes he's calling me back. At that moment I was probably in the, I don't know, I cannot really recall it at the moment. It was a really intense dissociation. So it was a really huge fear of, I'm not here, I'm going to die, I am going to vanish. Yeah, after 2 hours, it started gradually to become less panicky and anxious. And then I remember just in a few seconds, I came back. Like I remember as an airplane in a few seconds lands on the ground, I felt back that, okay, I'm better. It wasn't gradual, it was really quick, the end of the trip. And then I was a bit better. I chilled out with my friends. We went in the center of Athens. I was still, in a shocked kind of mood. Next day, pretty much, I still had like a heaviness in my head. I was a bit shocked of what happened. That I remember the next day I was telling my friend that I felt that I was teared apart into uh, into selfish and into entities, and now I'm trying to get back. But yeah, the following days, to be very honest, they were not that bad. Like I remember, it took me a few days to start feeling better. Then I had a chat with a friend, and I told him I'm fine. And a few weeks after, like after this bad trip, I hadn't really had any thoughts of depersonalization. I typed it in the Google that I'm feeling outside of myself. What is this? And depersonalization is one of the searches that appears. But I wasn't really bad. Like I was enjoying my life after. I was fine. But when it started again to come up this feeling, it was when I transmitted COVID, and I'm getting back in my quarantine. Back then it was 3 or 4 weeks mandatory quarantine. And I remember vividly that I'm starting to have some anxiety attacks. Like I had like a health anxiety. Like I had my leg was, for example, in pain, and then I was thinking, okay, maybe the blood vessels in my leg are because of COVID. And at that point, in the news, COVID was such a thing that when you have it, you feel threatened, you feel you are in danger, and basically you feel really anxious about your own health. And I think this state provoked me again to have some anxiety attacks, and later on had a really dissociated DPDR at the episode. Like I'm still remember it. It was so weird, and I remember vividly. In my room, like I'm started to feel that okay, I'm become again detached. That I'm not in my body, not in myself. I'm not in control in general, and really heavy intrusive thoughts started popping on my head. I had a small. I was doing back then. I was doing a small like like kind of art like with glasses actually, and there were some broken glasses and in my room, and I remember feeling so dissociated and depersonalized, and having intrusive thoughts that I'm going to take the glasses and I don't know hurt myself or something like that, and I remember vividly I just grabbed the glasses and throw them away out of my bedroom in the field next to our home. And yeah, that quarantine I spent it in my hometown, by the way. And it was, I don't know, this summer I think it was my worst summer ever. I cannot really. The main at that summer the main symptoms I have, it wasn't that of the realization. It was so strong intrusive thoughts that I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to hurt my brother. Like it, it wasn't voices as probably in psychosis. I was hearing something, but it was so strong thoughts. I'm going to do something I don't want, intrusive. And basically, it was really hard to deal at the first month with these kind of thoughts. And I remember the next week after feeling again really the DP and the DR all over my body. I had a first meeting with a psychologist, with which still to this day I still have meetings with her, but like once per month or 2 months, not really usual. And gradually I started feeling a bit better. I applied for the music college I found in Ireland, and I'm getting accepted. At the same time, I'm getting accepted also to work in a hostel in Dublin and live in this hostel. And here the really difficult part starts. Like I'm relocating in Ireland. I'm doing a diploma. Back then it was just a 1 year diploma in this music college, and it was only once per week that year. And I have a minimum wage job in this hostel, which I'm living. And I moved in the hostel in a 4 dorm room at first, and we were about 10 or 15 people living permanently in this hostel. The first 2 months, it wasn't depression; it was the deep, the symptoms of depersonalization, the realization on their worst. Honestly, I was looking all around the kitchen of the hostel. It was so plastic. I mean, it was in my eyes it was just a plastic place that I am visiting again and again. It was, and that I mean, it took 9 months to start not really having it. My main symptoms, I remember during my shift, I was using an elevator to go back in that hostel, which it was really nice, like a very small hostel, just in rooms, and easy to do, not very easy to do the job, but manageable. And I remember in this elevator, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I could not recognize me. Like I was just looking at the mirror and doing some expressions on myself that, and I could not, like, I cannot recall it. That's crazy. I mean, I had like thoughts, suicidal thoughts. Like I had, but they were not really based. Again, every self-harm thought I had back then, they were not based or in a depression state. I wasn't really depressed at that time. Like I was working, I was doing stuff. There were still intrusive thoughts. I remember in your DP manual, you were writing that you felt that your consciousness, that you have died, and that your consciousness was still around. I had these thoughts, like I was thinking, okay, I'm not dead. So what's going on? I mean, okay, but all those symptoms are, I think, are primitive, like ways of our body to tolerate stress and tolerate maybe uh, really difficult situations. And I remember in the November of 21, I was just in my worst moment of my life, honestly. I was sitting in this four-dorm bedroom in the common desk we had, writing down some notes. And I already had the consultations with my therapist. It was so hard. I was from distance. I was so stressed. I didn't have my personal space. It was so hard to connect with a therapist while you are in there. And we did, it helped. I cannot say the opposite. It helped later, not really the first months. And I remember writing down that at the common desk we had in this hostel that, okay, I am in the, now I'm feeling I am in the worst place. Like, I remember writing down that that's the moment I have never felt in my life as before. And yeah, I remember a couple of days later, uh, yeah, search for a moment. Yeah, a couple of days later, I found out I already knew, I think, about the existence of the DP manual. And I was starting to be familiar with the online communities that are, their topic are the depersonalization, derealization symptoms. But I found the DP manual, it was, it seemed really, hopeful at some point, like the description and everything. Every explanation of the symptoms, and it was so clear. And I can really tell you, Sean, that it was the only thing that at that point made sense to me. Like every other source of information was so subjective, like from people or from online communities, fearful comments. I mean, so many information that they were just confusing. And yeah, I found it really great. Okay, I will have this book, and there were some really good explanations, like logical. And I remember vividly that I started using the audio of the DP manual, which was the um, I can't remember. It was the DP pep talk. Actually, all of the work in the audiobook. And yeah, honestly, Sean, your voice, it was accompanied me in my worst phase of my life. Honestly, I cannot think more. Like I was sleeping with your voice in my ears. It was like I had the therapy session, they were helping, but having a voice that I know that this person, this human being has been in the same place that I've been, describes exactly the symptoms I'm experiencing, that I'm fearing of watching people, because I was feeling that people were plastic robots moving around, and when I was talking, I wasn't feeling that I am talking. It was crazy. I was feeling, I don't know, it's like your senses. I don't know how that exactly is explained. Maybe your senses and everything are so uh, in a great alert in order to capture every stimuli of your environment, of your experience. and that makes even your voice, that normally you don't really think that is that my voice or not. You just talk and you just go on. But when you are in that stress, in this state of so intense stress, like every little detail like becomes something to observe. You feel so isolated, and you feel that everybody else is fine. You're the only one. You are jealous. I was envy of people that didn't have DPR or DR. Like I was, like when I was talking with some people, and I was looking at their eyes and just to see if that was crazy, if they're dilating or not, and if they were not, I was feeling a bit worthless or inferior to them, to other people that didn't have the symptoms, and that was so difficult to deal. It was like a really intense feeling of being inferior, being mostly isolated from the other people. It was so intense being in a country that I knew nobody basically, and like I remember in March, the following March of 22, my derealization was so bad that I ended up buying some blue glasses, blue light glasses. I never had any problems with my eyes, but it was so difficult, and I remember like telling to my therapist that I cannot I cannot stop, I cannot watch the people anymore. Like I see them so touched, like with this pane of glass and so plasticky. Yeah, I could not enjoy all this. It was like I was feeling that somebody else is living and I'm not living. It was, I don't know, I remember reading an article telling that when you're dissociated, you are somehow split into selfish, the observer and the one that lives. And I was feeling a lot like that, but now I'm not. I'm much better.
That's so good to hear, Alex. So now that you've recovered, a question that I hear all the time from people is getting back to normal actually getting back to normal? Do you really get back to, the way you were? Do you really get back to normal?
You're back to normal 100%. I think there's no question, honestly. Or at least you're going to be better. There is no such, I think, a case that a person, like, I was feeling months real stressed and dissociated and depersonalized and derealized. I cannot even recall the state. I cannot even recall my state of working out with my headphones, my glasses, and feeling so stressed. I was feeling my chest having, having a lot of physical also symptoms like vertigos, headaches, not chest pain, chest tightness my leg. I cannot recall it. Like now I'm waiting outside. I'm feeling so blessed. But yeah, I managed to stop taking, and I think the best solution is to I have my the note here. Um, to release yourself from the fear of depersonalization and derealization. You're usually a person in the first stage is having the symptoms is so attached to this state that cannot embrace the opposite of letting go. So you're so attached and clingy and to the fear, and I really understand it. I really understand it from my bottom of my heart, honestly. It's so normal to have this fear of what's going on. But after a while, the associations with the symptoms and are lessened, and the fear is lessened, and you are starting to embrace a less attachment and to the symptoms, and you can finally release and let go. And that is the moment when you are going back to normal.
It takes some time, takes some adjustments, but you did it, and yeah, that's been some really good advice along the way as well. It's been so lovely having you on the channel today. Thank you for sharing your insight, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this will find it extremely helpful. But yeah, so listen, enjoy the rest of your time in Dublin. Enjoy the studying and recording music, and I look forward to hearing it.
Okay, thank you, Sean, for honestly, it was a dream of mine to talk with you.
Pleasure.
Well, thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, and I hope this video to find some people that can be inspired of, and realize that there are people like me and you, and hundreds of other people are going through all the symptoms. They are getting back, and that's it. I mean,
yeah.
There are actual, and there's not nothing to fear or feeling guilt. There are actual symptoms of an average person, honestly.
Yeah. These symptoms are common and harmless and temporary, and once you understand what they are, it's the first step towards recovery. So listen, enjoy your recovery, keep up the good work, and yeah, and it was lovely to speak to you, Alex. Take care.
No, it was great.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.